it is.
Started.
Recording. We did it. I'm so sorry. Thanks for being patient with me, man.
It's all good. It's always a scramble with the holidays.
Scramble, and then it was just the seriously the worst week for me to try to do something last week with because I go back and forth between Bentonville and San Diego,
Oh, okay.
and it was the week where I was leaving Bentonville and going back to San Diego, so I gotta pack everything, prep the van, and we were filming. So I had all that. And then I was on the road for a week.
Yeah, right on.
So
So were you? Yeah. What is your life like? It sounds like you ride all the time. Is that why you're in Bentonville? Yeah. Is that
yeah,
where you
I do ride as much as possible. And that's the beauty of Bentonville is there's just trails no matter where you live, there's trails right out of your house. So the I guess my emotional thing with in San Diego that I miss being in a wheelchair now is that I really miss just grabbing my surfboard and like running across the tracks and catching a couple quick waves at sunset, and I see people doing that. My friends will do that, and I really miss that. And living in Bentonville and just being able to ride my bike across the street out of my garage, I don't need any help. No one has to touch me. I kind of get that feeling again with that.
right on? That's pretty sick. Yeah, I've never been to
Yeah.
Bentonville, but it's been on my list for a while. Um,
Well, I have a guest room.
yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to go. I live in Spain now, but I just moved here like a year and a half ago. So
Oh,
I
no
moved
way.
from
Where in Spain?
I live in Barcelona.
No way. My
Yeah.
good buddy from college lives in Barcelona. That's
Really?
crazy. He's a teacher.
Oh yeah? That's sick.
Yeah. Are you a
Um,
are you a climber too?
I just started bouldering like a month ago or so.
A bunch of my friends were just there like a few weeks ago climbing.
Yeah, I mean it's like one of the best places in Europe, I've heard. It's not really my scene yet, but yeah, it's pretty sick.
That's cool.
So
That's cool. What's the seasons like right now over there? I see you're wearing some Arc'teryx gear. Are
yeah,
you out skiing or
no, I'm just in my apartment. No, it's in like the 60s every day in the city. The Pyrenees aren't that far away, but they don't have much snow yet. So
okay.
yeah. But yeah, I moved here from Colorado, so I did a lot more skiing there. So most of my winter clothing is from there. Definitely not.
Where where in Colorado were you living? Where are you from?
I lived in Lakewood for like 4 years, four years
Okay.
and change. So
Lakewood is like the only good part of Denver. Right?
yeah, yeah, like the west side of Denver.
Yep, yep.
Yeah, I definitely spent a lot of my time in the mountains. So um,
So
yeah,
you didn't know that I was going to be interviewing you today, did you?
yeah, yeah.
Hey, for my followers, can you say who you are and what your position is at Single Tracks?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, my name's Will Bruce. I write articles for a variety of different outlets, including singletracks.com. I've been writing them for them more lately. Um, and yeah, I mean, I have a background in marketing, writing, content creation, as well as urban planning and landscape architecture. In my time here in Europe, I've also built some trails in the Alps. That's what I was doing this summer. So
No
yeah,
way.
I'm just a freelance writer that lately have been writing more and more for singletracks.com. Um,
Very cool. If people want to follow you, where's the best place for that?
Instagram is the best place to follow me. It's at Willard S. Bruce. Yeah, yeah, I think that's probably the best.
Rad. Thanks, brother. Wait, so you're building trails in the Alps?
Yeah, I mean, I was in Austria this summer, working for a company called Trail Bowers. And I mean, technically, I'm self-employed and I'm contracted by the company, but that's who I worked with for two different projects. And I might go back this coming summer. It kind of sucks that trail building is not really a thing in Spain, or I'd totally do it here because I don't really want to leave Spain, to be honest. But yeah, I can't complain. So it's a lot of
Now, are
fun.
you working as a designer or are you like shovel in the ground trail builder?
Both, but more so on the build side, I'd say. I mean, so
Okay.
there's a planning firm, and then there's the company I work for, and the company I work for is really small. So, like we're given a corridor, and if the owner of the company doesn't flag it and pick the specific line, then we do, myself or someone else on the small team of 3 or 4 that I work with. So yeah, we're just doing micro scale design. So yeah, we might change the trail and flag it differently, but it has to be within a given corridor.
Cool. Rad. Well, if you guys need an adaptive consultant, you know where to find one.
Yeah, yeah, right on.
Yeah. I've never ridden in Europe, man. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, I built some trails in the United States too, and it's pretty different, I'd say. I mean, my experience anyway. Um, yeah,
Yeah, because Europe is just like right at your own risk. You're responsible for yourself.
yeah. I
And
mean, it's
here, yeah.
yeah. There's more like in the States, I worked on more like hiking trails that were also biking trails. Where in Europe, there's a lot of hiking trails that have been there forever, and most of the time they don't allow bikes. So, or I mean, a lot of people ride trails illegally, of course, but now I
Right.
think in the Alps and in like Northern Europe too, Norway, Sweden, Germany, there's just a push to build more bike specific trails, but with like berms and jumps, and like they're almost like bike park trails, but not necessarily in a bike park. So there's a ton of trails being built. I'd like to see how they're maintained in the future, but no, it'd be sick to see more trails for adaptive riders here, because I haven't heard that much about it. Honestly, I'm still more in the United States loop of trail building than Europe potentially, but
Hmm.
uh, I've already talked with a few different trail builders in the United States for the article I'm writing for singletracks.com about the growth of adaptive mountain biking. And
Yep.
it's super cool how in North America, I mean, Canada and the United States, how there's different trail organizations, nonprofits, all working together to build trails that are more accessible. I mean, Trail Forks now even has like an A mountain bike designation, which we'll talk about a bit tonight, I
Yep.
hope. Um,
Yeah, that's been a fun project.
yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah, I guess I'll flip it back to you. It's a nice
Yeah.
segue, and yeah, tell me like how did you get to where you are? Like, how did you start riding? What was your experience with the outdoors? Um, yeah, like what's your like average ride? Just give me an intro of yourself and like how you got into biking.
No problem, man. Well, first of all, I'm not a mountain biker. I don't consider myself a mountain biker. I'm a surfer, a waterman, and a trail runner first and foremost, and that's where I am in my heart. But my bike is how I trail run. That's how I can access a relationship with nature. Because life in a wheelchair is, relegated to hard surfaces. So that bike's amazing. Um, but as cool as it is limited. And I've gotten into trouble out on the trail. Um, I mean, I can't even tell you um, how many times I've been riding alone and gotten stuck or had to turn that thing around on really narrow single track with a drop off. I mean, imagine that. Use your imagination. A paraplegic sitting on the ground, you know, move, move Austin Powers turning this huge 7 foot long bike on a really narrow trail. Um, yeah, just a normal ride day can turn shitty really quick. Um, Even on just normal everyday trails that really familiar with, a flip over can happen at any moment, anywhere. And the thing is, like mountain biking, you crash, it's just part of the sport. It happens. Um, but the difference with adaptive mountain biking is sometimes you cannot recover from a crash. And that's the precarious part of it. Even mechanical failures, I don't have the luxury of walking my bike back to the trailhead. Um, I've been helicoptered out before, the canyon in my own backyard. It's just, yeah. So, and then in my traveling, before COVID, I was doing a ton of speaking and traveling for speaking gig, and that really obviously just completely shut down during COVID, and is been slow to pick back up again. But in those travels, I was traveling solo and bringing my bike with me and wanting to ride, and I would get into these precarious situations out there, and I didn't know. I go to local bike shops and you know try to message and email the local bike association, the local trail associations, trying to find information on where I could ride safely. And at that time, the information just did not exist. um, I was coming up empty-handed, and so I called up Trail Forks. And I was like, hey, what do you guys think about, documenting this information so, adaptive riders can use the app like anybody else? And they're like, yes, yes. So I developed a very simplified rating system, which we can get into that and why it is formulated the way it is. And they adopted the rating system, and I started documenting my trail experiences. The rating system does not exist on its own. It also, you know, exist with video, uncut video, recommended routes is a big one, and a trail blog. Because most people are not going to do trail research. Like, let's be honest, most people don't. They're not geeky like us, And well, the usual now is to really, look for recommended routes and follow up. That's kind of the usual. And then some people might type the trail name into YouTube and watch a couple videos. So that's why the video is so important. And then some people might skim a blog really quickly, and that the blogs share information like about for staging, facilities, and more deeper information like that. That's kind of how it started, man.
Cool. So yeah, let's go back a little bit to like your story. So you started out experiencing the outdoors and nature as a trail runner, a surfer, and then what happened to you? I mean, how did you end up adaptive mountain biking? Did you get injured, or if you're comfortable sharing it, then that'd be awesome.
Yeah, man, I love talking about myself. I'm scared. Yeah, that's a good question because I always forget about that. Yeah, I was paralyzed in a motorcycle accident in 2001, and I almost didn't live through it. So, just lucky to be alive, honestly. So it was a pretty crazy experience. But I mean, got back to sports right away, right when as soon as I could,
So
because
so
just
yeah,
having a relationship with nature is real important to me. So,
yeah, right on. How long did it take you before you, like in 2001 you got injured, and then when were you back doing activities again?
oh, right away, I bought a set of hand controls for I had a Forerunner at the time. Bought a set of hand controls for that thing from a homeless guy on the street. It was funny. I was in Mission Beach at the time, which is kind of like the kind of party beach zone in San Diego. And I remember, I think I was just going to get some food or something. I was living in that area, and there's a pretty solid homeless population down there. And guy asked me like, "Hey, do you drive, man?" I'm like, not really. I don't have hand controls for my car yet. And it was the exact perfect answer he wanted to hear, because like, oh, I got a set of hand controls I can sell you. So I went to the ATM, got some cash, and gave it to this homeless guy, and got a set of hand controls for my Forerunner, and then drove to Colorado and went skiing in the sit ski for the first time
Oh yeah.
at Breckenridge.
Oh, sick. So
Yep.
how long was that after the crash?
I want to say a few months.
Whoa.
Yeah, all my ribs are still broken.
That's
I
fast.
remember like after a day being a sit ski, I took my shirt off and my whole torso was all purple.
Yeah. I mean, Broken
Yeah.
ribs hurt. I've only broken one at a time. I can't imagine.
I broke all of them, almost all of them.
Damn.
Yeah, dude. Broken rib is the most painful injury.
Yeah.
It's so bad. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Forget forget sneezing, coughing, burping, laughing, deep breaths,
Sleeping.
forget it. Yeah.
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 Yeah, man. Yeah. And how was it at Breckenridge? Did you find it, obviously it was new to you, but did you find it somewhat welcoming? How was it like your first experience doing a sport in the adaptive realm?
It was tough, man. Big slice of humble pie, that's for sure. I went from, being a semi-pro snowboarder to 6 people helping me get down the bunny slope and being scared out of my mind strapped to this big old metal thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was tough. It was definitely tough. The learning curve's a lot longer. I'm one of those people that kind of takes a long time to learn something and get good at it. So my learning curve was pretty long with skiing. I'm not one of those people that just, picked it up right away.
Yeah.
It was pretty tough. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Just
I,
a little
I can't even imagine. I mean, I thought bouldering was pretty tough and I just started it. So I can't even imagine being in your situation. But
dude, strapped to a big old
yeah,
metal thing, send you downhill.
yeah,
And then factor a crowd into that and
yeah,
having to navigate through the crowd at the lift line. Oh my God.
yeah,
It was fucking scary. Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty wild. I mean, I was a ski patroller at Arapahoe Basin for a few
No way.
years. And so we did um yeah, I mean, we did training with different types of mainly just sit skis, but just how to like evacuate someone from a lift with a sit ski and like all these
Yep.
different drills. It was like the topic of one of the year's training or something like that. So we did actually like really that year, like really go into it and like work through like what we would actually do. And I'm really glad we did because it was really I am an outdoors person, but it was really the only like touch that I've had from like the adaptive realm really rather than seeing it from a distance. And I think now being a trail builder, I think a lot more about getting more people riding. I'm a little bit older now, and I think it's super awesome to get more people on bikes, different types of people from all different backgrounds. And it's super cool to just hear your perspective about how it was, especially initially, because I can't even like I have no like I can't imagine what it was like.
It is tough. I've done the evacuation training with ski patrol at Mammoth. That's pretty fun. Yeah, having
Yeah.
them rappel you down.
Yeah.
My sit ski actually has connection points and I carry a pack of evac straps. Most
Yep.
sit skis don't have that, so that was pretty fun. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we had a system where like we had two ways to do it. So we like discussed the possibility of at least the sit ski having like anchor points on it. But then also like I think I mean this was a few years ago, so maybe I mean I'm pretty sure I'm remembering correctly, but we'd actually have a like a safety and a harness for the person as well as the sit ski. So there's kind of two different points of safety, and then we would still just belay them down to the ground like we did other
Yep.
people. But
Yeah. Well, ideally,
wild.
each individual would have their own evac straps and stuff, but nobody carries that. Nobody does.
Yeah.
That's really real. That's really rare. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, no, we had extras for sure, but yeah, I mean it actually wasn't really that bad. Like once you know how to do it, like in the beginning, I feel like when we were first training, and for me, I think it was like my first year ski patrolling. So it was like, oh man, what is this thing? How do I do this? But it really wasn't that bad in the end. Um, but yeah, I mean, I guess going on to the next topic from here, it's a good segue. I mean, sit skis and adaptive mountain bikes are pretty complex, like there's a
Yep.
lot more going on. And you were talking about mechanicals and, any simple issue becoming a big one.
Yep.
Um, how much do you think like an adaptive mountain bike costs also? It must be pretty high.
It's very high. I'm actually very, very familiar with this because I'm the US dealer for the manufacturer that builds my bike there in Poland. Um,
Sick.
yeah, and our bikes range anywhere from like the very low end, like a rigid kind of gravel bike that's very simple, could, as low as like 5 grand, to my bike with all the bells and whistles, when it's all said and done, is more like 16. So
Yeah.
that's a lot of money. But there's other brands out there that are almost twice as much.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're very, very expensive. Yeah.
Yeah.
And reasonably so, because working with this company, I see like how much goes in to building one of these bikes, and it's insane. It takes one person a week to build one of these bikes. I mean, that's just to pay that person alone is expensive. And then just all the small parts and all the tiny little things that are welded. Oh my, it's insane. It's a miracle that these bikes even exist.
Yeah. And what's the name of that company in Poland?
They're called Sport On,
Okay.
and my company is JPM Pro. My
Okay.
initials are JPM. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Right on. Yeah, I see you're posting a lot of awesome stuff on Instagram. So I've seen some videos of your bike. So if I remember correctly, it's a three-wheeler, kind of two wheels on the front, one in the back.
yep.
Um, and yeah, it's pretty awesome to see all the different types of bikes because adaptive mountain biking is quite broad. You could be a paraplegic, you might have a neurological disorder, you might
Yep.
be blind. So it's always interesting to see like the different gear people have because it's definitely not like one size fits all. I mean, it's super diverse.
Oh, the gamut is huge. So this is again back to the rating system. The rating system is based on a curve of what most riders will experience based on the rider spectrum. And I base the rider spectrum on a formula of rider ability, beginner, immediate, advanced, basically, rider disability, which, as you're saying, that spectrum is huge. I mean, and then equipment capability, because there's all the gamut of equipment is again huge as well. So there's got to be some sort of formula to figure out what the mean is, because otherwise it's just overwhelming. How are you going to rate a trail for everybody? You can't, unless you like are doing it based on the average rider of that formula of the entire rider spectrum.
Yeah, for sure. And do you carry any like I don't know, like I mean, I carry like a small toolkit with me with like the normal things for a normal bike, like a tube and an extra chain link. Do you have to carry anything additional for
Oh yeah.
like that you ride?
Yeah. I mean, I have to be prepared for any or most contingencies. I can't be prepared for every contingency, but yeah, I carry a bunch of tools. A bunch of tools. I carry a bunch of spare parts in my car, so that way they're at least close. All kinds of stuff, man. I mean, I've been in really shitty situations out there.
Yeah.
And all I need is if I just had a zip tie, I could
Yeah.
get back to the trailhead, stuff like that. So yeah, I carry everything. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess um could you give me like one example of your choice? It could be something, super simple or not, but just an example of when you got like in a bad situation on the trail, you got stranded or something.
100%. Yeah. There was one time, it was kind of early in my adaptive mountain biking career. So I'm very much a rookie because I'm not I've never been a bike person. So I had a lot to learn when I first started riding. And that's the thing with these adaptive bikes, you're getting, non-bike people riding these very complicated machines, because it's how they hike, how they get out on the trail. So yeah, I was on a solo ride in my home canyon again, and lesson learned to check the weather before riding. It was just one of those days where it's just a rush to get out. I think I got in a fight with my girlfriend at the time that day, so I was just kind of like, like angry, and I just needed to get some, trail therapy, get my mind straight. So there's a rush to get out there, and I didn't check the weather. So I started riding and it started sprinkling. And it doesn't really rain hard here ever, It started sprinkling, like, okay, it's fine. It's just sprinkling. That's all really it ever does. But pretty soon into the ride, it turned into a major downpour. It was pretty crazy. And I was crossing this creek, and I misjudged my shifting, and I ended up like stopping and getting started again, busted my chain in this creek. Like crap. So I get out of the bike to fix the chain. So I'm sitting in the creek, I'm probably in, you know, the the water's maybe coming up like half of my thigh, like not even to my waist, sitting on the ground. So I mean it's just a few inches of water basically. And I've got, chain links because I learned that I need to carry chain links. And I'm fixing my chain and I drop the chain link in the water. I'm like, because my hands are really cold and I was just kind of, in a weird headspace, and it was pouring rain. And all of a sudden I hear this noise and I look to my left and all this water broke loose. It's kind of a flash flood situation. And
Yeah.
I instantly was sitting in chest deep water. Instantly. Just all this water broke loose. It was like rushing on me. My bike's completely submerged now. Chain link's gone. Like, what do I do? You can imagine like being a paraplegic, sitting on the ground, trying to lift this big heavy thing up onto like a 3-foot embankment. That alone like took forever. I'm soaking wet. Luckily, got myself up, got the chain fixed. Just that alone was like an hour that I'm skipping over. And
Yeah.
luckily, I had the brand new iPhone at the time. It was the first one that was waterproof. No, no, no. I had it in a life-proof case.
Yep.
I had my phone in a life-proof case, so it was waterproof. So
Hmm.
thank God I had that, and I was able to call my girlfriend at the time to come help me. Now she wasn't coming into the canyon to help me. She was just driving my car to the nearest out, and was
Yeah.
going to meet me there. But so I still had to get there, and it was like this thick, thick clay. Oh my god! But I finally get there. But luckily, I had multiple sets of chain links that I carried with me. And luckily, I had a rag with me so I could clear my drivetrain enough to work because I would go a few feet and everything would seize up because of the clay. So luckily, I carried a rag with me to clear my drivetrain so I could get to that out. Otherwise, it would have been way worse if I didn't have that stuff.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
there's a pretty extreme example.
No, yeah, I did not expect that at all. I mean, that's like many levels of, yeah, just being in a bad situation.
And
So
all it takes is just checking the frickin' weather before you go, man.
yeah,
It's so yeah,
yeah. I mean, it
yeah,
adds a whole other layer of like the whole saying like complacency kills, like, but
100%.
it's a whole nother level. So how long was that after you started riding an adaptive mountain bike?
Oh, you're gonna make me do some math on the
Roughly,
fly.
roughly. Are we
Well,
talking
I got my
years, months?
first adaptive bike in 2007. You know, I mean, I want to say it was like could be close to 10 years, maybe 8 years or so into it, but
Yeah,
still new.
yeah.
Take yeah,
And
it took me a long time.
how old were you when you started adaptive mountain biking?
Well, my wreck was 2001. I was 25 years old, and
Yep.
then I got my first adaptive bike 2007. So what was that? 6 years later. So I was
Yep.
31. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So I guess thinking about the trails themselves, like you were talking about the Trail Forks ratings and like the situation you were in the creek. what could there have been any like different trail design or improvement that could have been done there that would have made sense, that would have helped you out? Or yeah.
No, because that trail's fine. It's actually considered a fire road, so it's wide open and fine.
Okay.
That creek is normally fine. It's normally very shallow. Um, so as far as like a rating system and trail design, no, it's no different. Checking the weather would have been the one thing to change that, and also my rider ability. You know, I should have rolled through that creek without stopping and been in the correct gear and understood my shifting. Um, so that was all on me, and luckily I was prepared with the proper tools. Luckily, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not luckily. That was smart. That was
Yeah.
that wasn't luck. That's not luck. That is
Yeah. I mean, hey,
preparation. Yeah.
yeah, you got out. I mean, you made it work. Um, yeah, I ask about trail design because I know in talking with other organizations and trail builders that oftentimes like simple things, just like making a bridge a little bit wider, can really help
Yep.
adaptive riders. Um, so yeah,
Big one.
do you know like what are some like big like high level things like trail builders should be thinking of, just to make trails more inclusive and more accessible?
Yeah, I think inclusive is the right word there. Also, universal design we talk about, because the misconception is that, well, there's a couple misconceptions. The big one is that there's one type of adaptive trail, you know, and I actually really don't like the term adaptive trail, because what I hear when I hear that is segregation. you know that I get all the time, someone contacting me and someone coming up to me, hey man, we did a really cool thing. We built this trail, this adaptive trail that you can totally ride solo. And what I hear is like, oh, it's boring. And they're like, oh yeah, and it's 1.4 miles long. And I'm like, oh, it's boring, it's short, my friends aren't going to want to ride it, and it's the only trail that I could probably ride solo in their whole trail network. That's not a good thing. There's a way to build trails that are exciting for everybody. And it usually only takes a very little bit, as you've probably seen in your experience. It doesn't take much. Um, so that's the big misconception. And then the other misconception is that making a trail adaptive friendly is dumbing it down or sanitizing it. And that's not the case at all, because there's multiple levels of adaptive riders, and therefore the adaptive friendliness. And that's where the rating system comes in. A trail being adaptive friendly doesn't necessarily mean that every adaptive rider is going to be able to ride it solo. And that's what the rating system does is, well, there's two types of riders. Okay. Let me ask you a trick question. This will be fun. Okay. So with the rider spectrum that we were talking about earlier, the far left of the spectrum is going to be your riders that maybe need a little more help on the trail. Maybe they're a higher level disability, or they have less capable equipment. And on the right side of the spectrum, you've got riders that are much more capable, that can ride a lot more stuff or whatever. And then you might have, on the left side end of the spectrum, you might have an advanced rider, someone who's been an experienced rider who's been riding a long time, but maybe they're a high level quadriplegic, and they've got a front wheel drive bike with no suspension. So they've got less capable equipment and a high disability, even though they're very experienced. And on the other end, you might have someone who's a brand new rider. Maybe they're even riding for the first time, but they're a really low level, young, strong, shit hot paraplegic on one of those bowhead bikes. I don't know if you're familiar with them. They're the ones that angulate and can like accommodate off camber and everything. They can go a lot more places. So there's kind of an idea of the spectrum. So the trick question is, why can a lot of riders in the left end of the spectrum a lot of time ride more terrain than riders that are much more capable in the far right?
I think regardless of I don't know. It's a tough question. I'm trying to think it through. But I think the more experience you have outside, regardless of your disability level, I think that helps you the most get in and out of situations, regardless of your bike, regardless of your disability.
Well,
But
you're
let's just
right.
that.
But well, the answer is because riders in the left end of the spectrum most of the time do not ride alone.
Yeah.
They ride with a support rider. An adaptive rider with a support rider can ride a lot more than an adaptive rider without. Because riders in the right, over in the right end of the spectrum, can usually fix their bike on their own, are comfortable on their own, so they're on their own a lot, riding solo a lot more. But with a support rider, there's a clear defining line in the user group: riders with support and riders without. And
Yep.
so the rating system takes that into consideration. So like it answers the question, what when I'm riding alone, what can I safely ride? What can I safely ride when I don't have a support rider? And then when I do have a support rider, what's not going to be too much work? Because that's a bummer. It kind of crosses the line from, mountain biking into the mountaineering realm when the person I'm with is like on foot most of the time, spotting me through like most of the trail. So that's what the rating system does. And when it comes to, the misconception of that there's one type of adaptive trail, that couldn't be more wrong. When you think about that, because I like rocks, and I like texture and technicality. I like drops, and it depends where a rider is in that spectrum and what the goals are for the trail. Is this going to be green, blue, black? Is this going to be backcountry, front country experience? Is this going to be flow trail, jump line, tech line? Answer those questions first, and then, okay, what level adaptive do we want this to be? Do we want adaptive riders to be able to ride this solo, no problem? Do we want adaptive riders to be able to maybe ride this solo, but with practice and getting the line down? See, that's a very clear distinction. And then in that case, adaptive rider should probably have a support rider the second time they ride it. Or is it irresponsible for us, environmentally and speaking of the terrain, to make those updates? And so most adaptive riders are going to always need help on this trail, but it's not going to be so much that it requires the support rider to do much more work than is fun. Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it makes a lot of sense. How often, like, how is it for you? I mean, based on what you ride most often, like, what's your split of solo rides versus rides with a support partner?
Well, my goal, I'm a minority, and I realize that now. That is a solid piece of humble pie again, but it's just what it is, and there's no changing that. As a minority, if I can ride 20% of the trails in a trail network, I call that a huge win. And if I can figure out an exciting route, not one that's, might not be the best trails that an area has to offer, but something that's at least exciting and fun, and not just fire road and boring. If I can ride 20% of the trails in trail network and create an internal loop that has some texture and excitement, that is a success. That is a great success.
And riding
Yeah.
20% solo? Are you talking about solo or with a partner?
Solo.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, solo. That's going to be with the rating system. That's going to be your aMTB 1.
Okay.
Most riders can ride this trail solo. That's your aMTB 1. aMTB 3 is going to be most riders are going to need help on this trail, but it's not going to be so much that it's not fun or too much work. And then aMTB 2 is everything in the middle. That's all the maybe, take
Yeah.
a support rider the first time and see if you got it, and practice the line,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's similar to how I think about, I mean, I think it's the same for all types of trail building, but there's kind of something that's hard to describe. Like there's a trail that there might be the trail or parts of the trail that are just plain sketchy to the point
Yep.
where it's not even like fun difficult. It's just sketchy. I don't know. It's like not, it's hard to describe. It's not like a difficult feature or anything that's meant for riding. It's just a sketchy point that isn't really that fun to ride. And then there are features that are just more and more difficult and you can progress. And it sounds like with this rating system in Trail Forks, there is kind of more of that room for progression in a way that's rideable and it's not just that sketchy side, right? Which is cool to see.
100%.
And so is that correct in saying that what you're trying to create is a rating system that allows progression within adaptive mountain biking?
Yeah, and progression is a very big part of it. And that is part of the misconception, because the misconception that there's one type of adaptive trail takes progression out of the equation. That's not fair,
Yeah.
and that is not even near the truth. So one type of quote unquote adaptive trail is just not how it works. And that's the misconception that I'm fighting to help change and educate the trails world about. But when it comes to a trail like that, where there's one sketchy spot, a few things. One, you'd be really surprised that sketchy spot, there are some advantages to an adaptive bike. The fact that it's half mountain biking, but it's also kind of half 4x4ing. And those sketchy spots, sometimes that kind of 4x4 aspect of an adaptive bike, you can go right through it. There's so much suspension, and with the power assist, and especially with your rear wheel drive bikes, you'd be surprised what those bikes can just moto through. Um, and then, but also, if an adaptive bike cannot get to that sketchy spot without assistance, then, then that's going to bring, a rating of a trail that's mostly all good, probably all good otherwise, except for this one spot. That's going to change the rating of the trail, because an adaptive bike cannot get through there solo. Unless, and I don't want to say fix it because it's not broken, unless, updates can be made. And that's the purpose of, a lot of the, adaptive audits that I perform, is to identify the low hanging fruit, we call it. Those, one spot on a trail or trail network that if we were to update, make some changes to, open up maximum amount of mileage. For example, there's an area right outside of Bentonville, pretty much part of Bentonville, called Blowing Springs Trail Network. And there's probably about 8 miles of awesome trail, totally cut off from adaptive riders. Adaptive riders are totally cut off from it because there's a tree gate right at the trailhead, And so that's the low hanging fruit. Now, there's not one other tree gate on the entire 8 miles of trail. So that's not the desired experience of that 8 miles, and we didn't take out the tree gate. We don't want any trees to lose their lives. We just created, and with tree gates are interesting because you can get really creative with them. We did a cool ride around that is kind of like a berm, and now everybody rides that. It creates much more flow. But one thing I learned with tree gates that's really cool, sometimes if all you have to do is just widen the lineup so I could hit it at a 90-degree angle rather than at a side angle. And if I could hit a tree gate at a 90-degree angle, I can, get through it. Also, like, trees grow apart for the most part. And then we've even created ramps through the trees. So you get up higher, stuff like that. That makes the trail more fun for everybody, Yeah.
Yeah.
But we never ever want to change the nature of a trail, be irresponsible with the topography, or change the experience of the desired experience of a trail.
Yeah. So you do consulting work, just helping audit trails. Is that also under the same company? That's your initials, or is that something else?
Uh, it's a little complicated. So I have my nonprofit trails project. That's kind of what the YouTube channel is born out of, called the Unpavement,
Yeah.
and that's kind of the um, that's the entity that I do everything through, the Unpavement. Um, that's, where I'm documenting my trail experiences and how my name got into the trails world in the first place. But when I'm doing for-profit work, it's all through my for-profit organization, JPM Pro. That's where I do all the invoicing and everything through. Yeah.
Okay. Right on.
Yeah.
So yeah. So how often are you working in that? Like, is there? I guess what I'm getting at, is there much demand for that audit service so far?
Huge demand right now. Timing is crazy. There's this huge wave of land management and trail building organizations wanting to make sure that their trails are adaptive friendly. And it's a big thing right now, and it's the big wave. The other misconception is that adaptive consultants should work for free. That's also a major misconception, and it's completely not fair. And yeah, so that's interesting. I get asked to do work for free a lot, which I do actually. I believe that this is important, you know, and it is important. And if I can do it for free, I will. Like, I work on a sliding scale basically, and work with um, project budgets. If it's in the, but I just ask that project managers are honest about their budget with that. Um, my trail builder friends that I work with hate that I do that, but I believe this work is important, and I'm not going to say no to anybody. If they'll help me get there, they'll cover some expenses, and I can make some videos when I'm there for my channel. I'm in. I'm in. Yeah.
Yeah. Right on. Yeah. I mean, yeah, just getting it done. Right.
Just get it done, man. It's
Yeah.
important. We're
Yeah.
helping people have a relationship with nature, and you know these things are awesome. They enable us to accomplish so much, um, but because we're on them so much, we are rendered like that much more in need of spending time with nature. To be off them in nature is so important, and it's it's not only important, it's vital for our mental health and well-being. I mean, I struggle with anxiety and mild depression and things like that, and a lack of motivation and all that. But if I'm outdoors and exercising, and the combination of those two for some reason is this like magical formula, exercising outdoors is just, if I can do that on a continual basis, that chatter in my head and those things are a lot easier to deal with. The chatter's quiet after I come back from a ride or a surf or anything. So that's why this work is important. We're allowing people to have that.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. Yeah. For sure. So if someone was, say, yeah, say someone was in a similar situation to you, they got injured and now they have a disability. What would be some advice you would give them in terms of resources to look at, and just, yeah, anything you can think of that would help them get started, continuing to have that outdoor relationship?
That is a really, really good question. One second. I've got my space heater on over here. Let me turn it off real quick because it's starting to get
Sure.
too hot in
Yeah, sure.
here. Okay, I'm coming back. Actually, I can still talk to you because I have my headphones on.
Yeah, it sounds pretty good.
Yeah, man, that is a tough one because everybody's different. and I can't speak for anybody else other than myself, you know? Um, when I was in that time, when I was first injured, um, the last thing I wanted to be told was that I could live a normal life and life's going to be okay. That was the last thing I wanted to hear. I just wanted to be normal again, you know? So for me, it was important to see if like walking again and recovering was a possibility. Um, so that's kind of my advice to people is don't force it, just be honest with yourself, do what you think is best for yourself. And when you're ready, we'll raise money, get you a bike, get you outdoors, whatever, um but some people are ready immediately, um the other thing is, living life with a spinal cord injury, especially in the beginning, is very expensive. Even just buying a wheelchair, paying for medical supplies, catheters, things like that, that, a lot of time insurance covers, but you have to pay a solid portion of it yourself, hospital bills. But then also sometimes it takes insurance a long time before it kicks in, you know. I mean, in the beginning, for the first couple of years, I had to buy all my catheters out of pocket, cost me like 150, $200 a month just to pee, it's freaking crazy. So my advice to people is, and there's a ton of energy usually surrounding someone when an accident first happens, and my advice is take advantage of that and throw some fundraisers, start a fundraising page, throw fundraisers, raise some money because you're going to need it to help with a lot of these expenses. And if and when they're ready to, get an adaptive bike, that can help a lot. That's my advice.
Sure.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I guess.
And then once on the trail, take it slow. you
Yeah.
know, don't let me just say that I am tired of gambling with my body, my equipment, and just the, experience in a given day that can all go really shitty really fast. So when you're at that trailhead and you want to go down it, but you're not sure, it might be fine. A lot of times I have gone down that trail and it was great and I made it, and a new trail was added to my trail library, and that's awesome. But it's a fucking gamble, and it could go bad really quickly and easily. My advice is don't gamble, be prepared, you know. What's the new saying? Fortune favors the prepared,
Yeah.
not the
Yeah.
brave.
Yeah, for
That's what I
sure.
like to say. Yeah.
And another hard question that's the same, but uh, if you could pick, like, in your own opinion, what do you think is the biggest barrier from that person getting their first adaptive mountain bike or just getting back outside again? But you can only
Um,
pick like one general topic.
what usually finances is the biggest one that I've run into. Bikes are expensive,
Right.
that. So other than that, just, more emotional, um, boundary or obstacles. That's probably what you're getting at. Um, man, here's the funny thing, an ironic thing. Most people are in a chair for a reason, you know, because they are, gung ho, and go for it type people, and that landed them in a chair, So that mentality usually doesn't stop. People remain being who they are. They don't, you know, that doesn't change necessarily. Um, and My experience with that personally, actually, I'm just now in my mountain biking career, experiencing this and digesting this for the first time and voicing it out loud for one of the first times now is the progression, being that like all balls, no skill athlete, um, only can get you so far, you know,
Yeah.
and that that is that's an obstacle, you know, and that's been me and who I've been, and I would say a lot of wheelchair athletes. That's kind of why they're in a chair, uh, and that can only take you so far. So I backed off and slowed way down. I'd say like maybe even the past 10 years, slowed way down and become very cautious because being that all balls, no skill, huck and pray, athlete, um, I've broken bikes, I've broken bones, I've had just a really shitty days because of it, So then, yeah, slowed way down. And now I'm at the point in the progression where slowing down is hindering me. And now starting to get to the point where I'm going faster. In fact, okay, you can roll over a jump and that's fine, but then you get better and you progress and you start getting a little more air, take a jump a little further, and that's fine. But then you get to the point where you're knuckling it and completely casing it, and that's very bad and counterintuitive. Where if you just go a tad bit faster, you're going to land the jump perfectly and it's going to be smooth as butter, So
Yeah.
that's where I'm at in my progression. I'm at that point now where I'm now beginning to push it again, but now with skill, and it feels really good. And it's more calculated risk and with confidence rather than huck and pray.
Yeah.
Just go fast and see what happens. There's none of that really anymore. So that, to answer your question, um, that's a pretty big obstacle for adaptive riders.
Yeah.
Being the beginning in that progression, having all the willingness to send it, but riding an adaptive bike is way different, and it takes a long time. It's taken me, God, what 20, 15 years to figure it out. But it does take me a long time to learn anything. So there is that.
Yeah. No, yeah, it makes sense. I mean, I guess it's way less consequential, but like even for me riding my bike, whenever I try to go really fast and give 100%, it's when I crash. But like my fastest times, like enduro racing, which I just started a year ago, is like when I'm giving like 80% or 90% maybe. It just feels,
Yep.
it's like, I don't know, it's more fluent and it seems
Oh,
to,
really? At 80, 90% feels more fluent?
yeah, I think so. Then 100%, because
Oh.
100%, I just crash.
Oh,
No, no,
because I'm saying the opposite.
what do you mean?
That I'm at the point
Yeah,
where,
yeah,
going
yeah,
80 per
got it.
90% is now hindering me,
Yep,
you know,
got
going
it.
90% brings me to the knuckle of the jump,
Yep,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah,
rather than going with full confidence
yeah,
and hitting it at 100% and
yeah.
then, landing in the sweet spot.
You've already gone full circle. So you're like a step beyond
Full
me. You're
circle,
you're a
full
step
circle.
beyond me. Maybe that'll happen again.
Yeah, commitment is the number one most important factor in the sport.
Yep.
That's what's going to determine if make that jump or not. You know, yeah.
Yep.
There's
Yeah.
no other. I mean, there's all these little things you could do. All the small fundamentals, which you learn and practice in time, but nothing affects it more than commitment level.
Yeah. So I know I've seen like an Instagram video of you like doing a drop that was a few feet high, a meter high or so. Yeah, do you ride bike parks much? Like I guess to
Yep.
I'm writing an article and I'm guessing a lot of people that read it probably don't know much about adaptive mountain bikes, and I want them to have a at least somewhat accurate view about the way people can ride, whether a lot of people are doing it now or if more people do it in the future. But like Yeah, tell me a bit more about like, yeah, do you ride bike parks? Like tell me more about what you like to ride and the progression, like talk about it just a little bit more specifically about what you like.
Well, answer the question, what do I like? Am I riding bike parks? Yes, 100%. I live across the street from one of the main bike parks in Bentonville,
Mm.
and out there there's a lot of jump lines, that all over the place, and I've never really considered myself, a front country, you know, bike park rider. But that's what you do there, That's a lot of that. Um, my favorite type of trail, I would say is tech flow. I really love rocks and drops. But what's really cool about that video that you're referencing is that's a drop, sizable drop, that is a step in the progression for a personal goal of mine to do a very big drop in the area called Drop the Hammer. Um, and I'm working with the main trail building organization there, the Trailblazers, on figuring out what do I need to do with my bike to do that drop safely and to be able to do drops better, because the bikes are very long and very front heavy, so they dive. And that commitment level is really the only factor that I have to prevent me from diving. It's always going to dive, but preventing from diving too much where it's going to be catastrophic. I basically got to go really fast. And then I'm also working with them on figuring out how to best build jumps for for my bike and adaptive bikes, which is really fun. And we're filming a documentary film of the whole thing. We've got a big moto airbag set up with this ATV kicker, and analyzing slow motion video. We are going to build a replica of that Drop the Hammer drop and send me off it into an airbag and see how it goes and figure it out. And yeah, it's really fun. And I mean, talk about progression. Um,
Yeah.
Now I'm out there. I'm like, oh crap, I better. I need to practice. And I'm riding with like some concrete goals in mind, and my riding is jumping up several notches because of it, and it's really fun.
Right on. That's awesome. That's like
Yeah, that
really
drop was hilarious. So I ended up doing that like 6 or 7 times that day. And the first time I went off it, I was going a tad too slow. So I dove, I landed pretty vertical, and I yelled, "Oh shit," in the air. I thought I was going to crash, man. I thought it was done. And I even closed my eyes on landing.
yeah.
And my suspension took it and I rode out of it and it was fine. Um, but that was pretty scary for everybody, for me to send that drop for the first time and yell, "Oh shit," in the air. Oh, it's hilarious.
Yeah. And so you wear like the normal protective equipment? Do you wear anything different than
I wasn't,
other
I was
people?
just wearing a regular half shell helmet that day.
Yeah.
I hate full face helmets. I just hate them.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't really need to wear full face because I have like a chest pad in front of me. That chest pad I rest on when my hands are um, off the handlebar and I'm cranking. And that chest pad actually has cables connected to the bottom of the stem, and is how I steer with my chest when I'm cranking. But it also acts as a protective thing. When I hit hard, my chest hits first and my face doesn't hit anything.
Mhm.
So I don't necessarily need to wear a full face. Um, Elbow pads is an important one. I've been wearing them a lot less lately, but they're really important because my elbows are the first thing to hit when I in the event of a rollover. So
Yeah.
elbow pads and helmet, basically it. Yeah.
Yeah. And say you are with people, you're riding a place with other people. Do you crash often, or is that something that's really, really bad? Or is it something that if you're with other people, is it something that's okay? Like,
Yes, slow rollovers happen all the time. That day, actually, I mean, we had done that drop a ton of times. We were sending all the jumps, and everything was fine. And then as we were leaving, I was kind of like backing up awkwardly on this trail connection, and everyone had left to go to the cars, and I flipped over. Like, how ironic, yeah. And they of course came running back to help me and stuff. Little things like that happen all the time. um Big crashes, I mean, I haven't, knock on something, had a big crash in a long time. Those are rare. But stupid shit happens, man. um just little stuff like operator error things happen. God, I flipped over one time riding by myself a few months ago and ended up running over my hand. I thought my hand was broken.
yeah,
Little things like that happen. Yeah.
yeah. Well, yeah, no, I think that's a pretty good answer because I mean, if you're with someone, it seems like it makes a huge difference. Like you were saying before,
Yeah.
like if you have a small fall and you're with people that can help you, like that seems like it's not that big of a deal as long as it's not a bad crash.
It's not, yeah. If they're, usually if they're, strong,
Mhm.
someone can flip me back over on their own without me having to eject from the equipment.
Yeah,
If I end up off trail or not is the issue.
yeah,
Getting me back up onto the trail is a thing. If I'm with someone, um, we can usually figure it out, but it's pretty hard. I mean, especially if there's loose footing, it can be
yeah,
really hard. My bike is big and heavy, and then my lower body is all dead weight. You know, so even physically getting me back up to the trail, even though I don't weigh that much, is pretty hard. So when I go on like big backcountry rides and things like that, I do carry a chest harness and webbing and things like that, because I've been in situations where we really could have used that stuff. And then if I'm solo, if I end up on or off trail is the factor that determines if I can recover or not. Usually, if I'm off trail, pretty much forget it. I'm gonna have to call for help or hope someone comes along. I can usually get myself back up to the trail if I can find some handholds, some bushes or trees or something to hold on to. If there's no handholds, forget it. Um, but getting my bike back up to the trail, no way. No, there's no way. Yeah.
yeah. And how much do you think your bike weighs, or if you know the total of everything?
It's gotten heavier and heavier and heavier over the years because we keep adding gussets and reinforcing it, because I'll break it and like, oh, we got to make it so it doesn't break in that way anymore. I mean, with the power assist, the motor and the battery probably add 12, 13 pounds. It's getting close to like 68-ish now, 65. It's getting up there.
Yeah, and that's
They
just the
used to
bike,
be.
or is that
What's
everything?
that?
Is that just the
That's
bike?
everything.
Everything.
That's the whole bike in itself, everything.
Okay.
They used to be the frame, the bike itself without a power assist used to be like 45 pounds. But it's just gotten heavier and heavier and heavier over the years. And rightfully so. Like, I haven't broken a bike or anything in a really long time. They're making them really strong and really well now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty high. I thought for a moment though you were talking in kilograms, and I was like, "What? That's
Oh,
insane!" And then I was like, "Oh, it's in pounds." Okay, okay, okay. That's
they're pretty heavy. It's pretty heavy. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. So we've talked a lot about the things that I wanted to cover. I have a list of questions that I'm just glancing at right now, making sure that we didn't miss anything. I kind of hate just going through these like a list because then it's less of a conversation.
Oh, that's
Um,
fine.
but all right, I
My
guess.
listeners know that this is an interview for an article. So,
Yeah, right
and
on.
this is just, they're cool to, the feedback that I've gotten is that people are stoked to see kind of the behind the scenes process of what goes into writing an article like you're doing and stuff. So
Yeah, yeah, for
yeah.
sure. Um, so yeah, I guess one question that we didn't hit on really, has there been any like how do you feel when you go out to a trail to ride, or just in the mountain bike community, the larger mountain bike community in general. Do you feel like there's a lot of support for you as an adaptive mountain biker, or do you feel that there's got people that just don't like that you're riding trails? They think that you're, like you mentioned earlier, they think that you're like making trails easier somehow, or like how do you feel as a part of the mountain bike community?
Um, in general, and for the most part, I feel extremely supported. Most people are very, very, very supportive and stoked. It's a little too much sometimes. I miss being anonymous. I miss being able to just put my headphones on and hit the trail and get my willies out and crank hard. Um, and nobody says anything to me. I,
Yeah.
I I'd be lying if I said I didn't miss that. Um, and I do have to remind myself that am an ambassador, and I need to say hi, be very friendly to everybody, because sometimes I'm just having a bad day and I just want to be quiet. I don't want to talk to anybody, just like anybody else. I'm no different. Yeah. So there is that aspect of it that can be hard sometimes. People want to stop and chit chat and look at my bike and tell me how good it is to see me out there and stuff, and that's a piece of humble pie too. Um, and most of the time, I'm perfectly stoked to sit and chit chat. Most of the time, but sometimes I'm in my moods.
Yeah, for sure.
And fair enough. And but all that to say, like, people are very stoked and very supportive, and the user groups that are not so supportive, I find that it's just a matter of education, really, because they mean well. We're protective of our trails, and that's their motivation. They're being protective of their trails, and I understand that. And it's just a matter of education, really.
Yeah.
Talking about we're the details of the project, that we're never ever going to be responsible. We're not dumbing down trails. The whole power assist issue, I've had some run-ins with people on the trail about, but the awareness around that has really grown. Really, it's pretty much, I never ever have a problem anymore of people being pissed off that I have a power assist.
Yeah.
um, People get it, and although maybe they don't like it and maybe they don't agree fully, necessarily, but they accept it and realize that that's how things are now. So that's fine. But for the most part, people are stoked, man,
Yeah.
and that's a good thing. I say this weird thing that being paralyzed is a gift in that way, which is a really crazy thing to say, because being paralyzed sucks. um, because I can go do these things that I love. I can just go for a quick ride on the trails across my street, and people are stoked on it.
Yeah.
So that's a cool thing.
Yeah. I mean, I'm stoked on it just talking to you.
Yeah, man.
It's inspiring. It's awesome. Um, so I guess following up on kind of that question and also what we were talking about before about bike parks, have you gone to any lifts or bike parks?
Yep, I have.
And how is that experience just using the lift?
I If I have the choice, I usually forego the lift now. And since I have any assist,
Mhm.
um, I just climb the service roads now at bike parks, if that's an option. If it's not too long, um, there's places like Trestle Bike Park,
Yeah.
Winter Park in Colorado, where that road just takes like all morning to climb. It's so long.
Yeah.
So that's like a single lap situation. I probably wouldn't climb that twice and get multiple laps. Depends on my goal for the day. Yeah, I have ridden a lot of lift service bike parks. I ride Mammoth a lot, and it's like hit or miss what the experience is going to be like. How astute the lift staff is to handling adaptive bikes. Some places have really good training, some don't. The places with like a very established adaptive program at the mountain usually do a lot better. But even then, um, everybody's different, and there might be a local rider who the staff is all kind of trained around. But then, I roll up there and I do things differently than that local rider, and so then the staff is like, what do we do? You know, and so yeah, it's just like it's the same experience for like, traveling anywhere or taking an Uber. Like, I don't know what kind of situation it's going to happen, what kind of experience I'm going to have, because
Yeah.
every time is different. Yeah, yeah. But I'd rather just forego all the drama and climb the service road if I can.
Yeah, I mean, I could even imagine like there's different ways to bring a bike up the hill, whether it's
Yep.
like,
Oh,
one of
oh
the
yeah.
chairlift contraptions, and I don't know how that would work.
Yeah, I've
If I
got
really know with a regular bike, then I don't know. It seems pretty complex. Is
yeah.
there one type of bike carrier that you have used that you would prefer that would make it easier for you,
Um,
or a shuttle, or
you know what I like? Just a regular chair is the best. A
Mhm,
regular chairlift. And you put the bike over the top of me on the chair, kind of, you know,
mhm.
kind of I get into the chair and then put the bike on the chair with me. It seems to work really good. Some places don't like to do that, but that's the best because there's less stoppage of the lift. Then you're only stopping for one chair rather than two chairs. If you're stopping, because usually they have to stop the lift in order so they can access both two chairs, so that I roll up to one and transfer to it, sit on the chair, and then they take my bike and put it on the chair in front of me. It has to go on the chair in front of me,
Yeah,
because once I get to the top, if my bike's on the chair behind me, then I have nothing to sit in when I get off the lift. So my
yeah,
bike has to be on the chair in front. So they have to stop the chair lift in order to be able to access both of those chairs, the one that I'm sitting on, the one they're going to put my bike on.
yeah,
And then once I get to the top, they stop it. Once my bike gets to the top, they stop it, take my bike off, start it. When I get to the top, stop it again. Um, and then I get to my bike and ride off and they start cheering. But that's three stoppages. But if the bike is on the same chair as me, that's only two stoppages in total. So
yeah.
that's what I prefer. Yeah. And then gondola, I ride the Mammoth gondola a lot. And it's just like basically who is working that day, if they know how to fit my bike into the gondola car or not. So, and then I've had tie rods bent and all kinds of stuff, and them trying to get my bike in there. And it's just, yeah.
Yeah.
And then
Um,
there's lifts with like a cargo rack, or, but then that cargo rack is, maybe they have two on the entire line or one, and I have to wait for that to come around. And then there's lifts with, that are every other chair lift and bike rack, chair lift, chair, bike rack, chair, bike rack, chair, bike rack. Those work pretty good. But then they put my bike on the bike rack sideways and it takes up the whole thing. So I have to ride the chair alone. It's,
yeah.
it's hit or miss.
Yeah, and have
Yeah.
you done any like shuttle trips like
Yep.
here in
Oh yeah.
and is that better than a chairlift? Like
Yeah. Usually, yeah. If you can just throw my bike in the back of a truck or
yeah,
whatever. Yeah, I've done that too. Where like, screw it, we're just going to give you a ride up every time. I've had places do that, and that's fine. I feel like a VIP so that's great. Um, it depends on if I'm with friends that are familiar with everything and they know how to handle me and how to handle my bike.
yeah,
That's always nice. I got a couple of friends I ride with that I don't have to worry about a thing, and it's great.
yeah.
They pick me up, put me in the truck, put my bike in the back, boom, we're gone. Yeah.
Cool. And so I guess a follow-up question is like when you just go to a trail like yourself, like you have a truck and it fits in the truck and it's fairly easy to bring your bike to the trailhead.
Yeah, I have a couple different vehicles and a couple different options. I've got my Subaru and I've got a van, a 4x4 all-wheel drive van that's all built out. The bike fits in back of the van, and I've got a cool system for loading it. Um, I've got a couple little ramps that they made me, and I have a hydraulic powered bed in the back, and I basically attach the bike to the bed and raise the bed, and it pulls the bike mostly in, and I can get it the rest of the way in. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. I also have a powered lift on the back of my Subaru. There's a bracket on the bike that connects to that lift, and I load my bike in a minute and a half, 90 seconds.
Whoa, that's pretty cool.
I attach it to the lift, and it lifts it up off the ground.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
and the cool thing about that is the wheels are free, so it doubles as a work stand. So it gets the bike kind of up to waist height, and that's my work stand too. And I can transfer the lift from the Subaru to the van. Sometimes I need to have the bike on the back of the van, so I've got options.
Yeah,
and they're all fairly simple for transporting my bike.
yeah. And you just made me think of something else. So for bike mechanics, so I imagine you can do a lot of things yourself, but I imagine there's also things that you can't do or don't do. And then how is it working with bike shops?
It's bike shops are usually great. I've got well, and I like the way you said that. There's a few things I don't do
Yeah,
because I can do it all. I just don't want to bleed my brakes, and I
yeah,
don't want to work on my wheels. Those are things that I don't like to do that I usually employ a professional mechanic for. So yes, um, yeah, bike shops can be hit or miss. I've got a few that I know and trust, and I also have a few criteria for discerning if what if I'm gonna use them or not. Um, if I roll in there and they balk in any way at bleeding a double caliper on a splitter, or balk in any way of installing a downhill casing tire with a cush core, they balk at that at all. Those are two really clear indicators that that's probably not the right mechanic for me,
yeah,
but if they're like cush core, yeah, give it to me, and are done in 10 minutes, which that's a really clear indication that that's my guy, or my girl. And if they're like, oh, brake on a splitter, oh yeah, I just have to do this and this and this, that's, oh yeah, that's no problem. Those are the kind of indicators that I look for when I'm talking to a mechanic for the first time.
yeah. Right on. Um,
But when it
and
comes to like working on the bike and actual lift, or,
yeah,
a work stand for them, that can be tough. Usually we're just, balancing on top of stuff,
yeah,
you know?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I
Because
guess not
their
every shop
their
has a
their
lift
work
like
stands
that.
don't work for it. Yeah.
Yeah. And do, do you think that adaptive mountain biking is growing?
Oh, 100%. Like, yeah, massively growing, for several reasons. One, the adaptive population is growing, just with, our, war efforts across oceans, and with how action sports are just getting bigger and bigger and bigger and gnarlier and gnarlier and gnarlier. Yeah, the population is growing. Also, population is growing because baby boomer generation is now, entering into elderly age and entering the adaptive community. So yes, the availability and reliability of the equipment is getting way better. The equipment, it's crazy how far the equipment has come in just 10 years. It's crazy. And then also the availability of funding is huge now. There's so many organizations that give grants to help people get bikes. It's pretty cool. So yes,
Yeah,
it's growing massively. Yeah. And it's the awareness. People are starting to realize, like, oh, I can get a bike. I didn't, that maybe didn't know it before. Yeah.
yeah. I asked because I hope both on the bike mechanic front as well as the bike park front, I hope there's a little bit more as time goes on, a little bit more support, maybe more standardized
100%.
standardized trail ratings, standardized bike shop tools that could be used, or ways to get a bike up the hill. And I guess that leads to my next question is like, what do you see the future of adaptive mountain biking, like from trail design to everything we've talked about? Yeah, what do you see as the future of it in any way you want to answer it?
Ooh, that is a great question and very exciting. Um, the equipment is only going to get better. Um, the future of the equipment um, going is going to be is going to put me out of a job, and that's really exciting. The equipment's going to get so good, there's not going to be any need. There's going to be a lot less need, we'll say, for you know, helping make trails, adaptive bike friendly, because those bikes are going to be able to accommodate much more terrain, especially, off camber and pinch points. It's the equipment's only going to get better. And that's really, really exciting.
Yeah.
I mean, in the near future, adaptive bikes are going to be able to go pretty much, anywhere a two-wheel bike can go for the most part, with some exceptions.
That's
Yeah.
pretty awesome. Yeah.
That is awesome. Yeah, that's really exciting.
Yeah. Man, the more people, the better. The more people outside experiencing
That,
nature and helping protect it, the better, in my opinion.
well, that's exactly it. I mean, look at all the just uncertainty and just hatred in the world right now, And if people just got outside and exercised a little more, you know,
Yeah,
it'd probably help a lot with those things.
for sure. Yeah. Yeah, I agree completely. And that's pretty much all the questions I have for you. Is there anything that you'd like to add or any questions you have?
Yeah. Well, actually, one thing I meant to talk about with you is I have spoken with single tracks
Hmm.
about adopting the rating system and everything as well. Talks stalled. I can't remember why. This was several years ago. They've gone through some attrition
Yep.
with the people running the app and everything. But that was in the works, and it would be cool to get that back going again. It shouldn't be just Trail Forks doing this.
Yeah.
It should be everybody. It's all a good thing, and they were all in. They actually had contacted me, so
Yeah.
they were all in, and that'd be cool to get that going again.
Yeah, for sure.
But everybody's system is different. I remember it being a much more difficult with single tracks, the way their back system worked. Like, I wasn't going to be able to input the information myself. It was
Yeah.
going to always have to go through one of the programmers. So I remember that being a tough hurdle.
Yeah.
Because Trailforks is all user information.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a little different. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm happy to I'll follow up on that and see. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Definitely.
I could go back through my emails and see who I was communicating with
I mean,
and
I
see if
don't
they're
know.
still there or not.
Yeah, I mean, I could just ask them, and I'm sure that we can connect the dots from there. I mean, I can't see why they wouldn't want to do it. I mean, they seem like good people to me, so I think I'll just shoot my contact and email, and yeah, I'll loop you in, and we can go from there.
Sounds good, man.
Cool. Well, thanks a lot for your time. We've been talking for an hour and a half, so it's been a really good conversation, a lot of information, and I do have the recording, so I can send that over to you.
Yeah,
And
send that to me. And I'm. Are you okay if I post it right away, or do you want me to
um,
wait for your article to come out? It'll only
yeah,
promote your article. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I don't have a problem with you posting it right away. Um,
Okay. Cool.
I mean, I work for singletracks.com as a freelancer, so I don't. Yeah, I think it'll be fine just to post it. Are you going to
It's
post it?
completely different. It's completely different content than what your article is going to be. So,
Exactly.
but
Yeah.
for everybody listening, Will's going to write an article for Single Tracks. So make sure you follow his Instagram, which is listed in the show notes.
Yeah.
And he mentioned earlier, and you'll probably post and share it. When your articles are published, do you share them like in your story and stuff?
I do. Yeah. I'll
Okay,
do like
perfect.
posts and I share it in my story, and Single Tracks does too. So I'll be sharing that content. And yeah, should be, I've talked to 4 or 5 different people for the articles. So from it
Oh,
ranges
who else
from,
did you talk to?
yeah, I talked with Rock Solid out from the upper Midwest about the Cuyuna trail system, which has some trails that adaptive riders can ride on. I talked to Kingdom Trails in Vermont, the trail building organization, as well as Vermont Adaptive, which is kind of the statewide
Cool.
nonprofit that just helps people get outside, not just on mountain bikes. And then you, of course. So yeah, that's who I've talked to so far, and I think I'm good at this point. And I'm going to write the article, and if I find gaps that I need to fill in, then I might reach out to more people. But
100%. Yeah, let me know if you need
that's it.
anything. Who'd you talk to at Rock Solid?
Ooh, I talked to let's see. I don't want to mess up his name. He was the manager of that project in Cuyuna.
I know all those guys.
Yeah. Kyle
Yeah, I know Kyle.
McGhee.
I actually just met him for the first time. They were
Yeah.
coming back from a job up in Michigan,
Yeah.
and I was at the Rock Solid headquarters working on something with those guys, and they all pulled up in the semi trucks, all loaded up and everything. And I met Kyle for the first time. That's cool. That's really cool, man. Those are
Yeah.
good guys.
Yeah. They're building a lot of trails. So
They're building a lot of trails. Yeah.
really cool to see like the explosion of trail building around the world. But from my perspective, it still seems like the majority is happening in the United States, followed by like the German-speaking countries in the Alps in Europe.
Oh, interesting.
Well, I mean, I guess as well as Australia and New Zealand, but I know less about those areas. But
Well, when you're stateside, hit me up. It'd be cool to get some turns with you.
yeah,
Or if you guys, need help at all with your projects across the pond, let me know. That could be fun.
yeah, right on. For sure, I'll keep that in mind. Yeah, like I said, I mean, I'm self-employed technically. I'm contracted, but I can definitely, if I hear of anything that they're looking for, I'll definitely keep your name in my head.
Rad, brother. Well, thanks again for being patient with me, and thank you for your time as well. I enjoyed hanging out with
Yeah, no, thanks. It's been a pleasure.
you. All right, we'll be in touch. Send me that file.
Yeah, will do. I'll send it over. All right.
All right.
Have a good one.
Bye. Later.